Well, Major League Baseball came to Milwaukee with the Braves, and when they were controlled by ownership from Chicago, they plotted their escape to Atlanta. They kicked the local board members off, like Bud Selig and Vince Lombardi, and things were looking pretty grim here. The lawsuits ensued, and they didn't really help very much. They wanted to either keep the Braves here or guarantee a franchise ASAP back in Milwaukee, and they didn't get any of that. But they got the White Sox to play a handful of games here, and then the Seattle Pilots were born, and that is where the Milwaukee Brewers story starts. Well, the 1969 Seattle Pilots were an expansion team, and they were bad. Jim Bouton wrote a book called Ball 4. He was on the team, and the book really documented the season pretty well. If you haven't read it, you need to. The Pilots' number one draft pick was Gorman Thomas. When he was told by his mother that he had just been drafted by the Pilots, he was disappointed because he wanted to go play baseball. See, the Vietnam War was going on, and he thought the Seattle Pilots were something military. Well, the Pilots went bankrupt in just 1 year. Bud Selig's investment team swooped in. Now, Topps made 26 Pilots cards. Of course, only like 6 guys have the correct Seattle hat on because everybody else was, a doctored picture from whatever team they were on. The Seattle hat guys were in the later series. If you didn't know, in the 50s and 60s, and sometimes even later, cards come out in series at certain points in the season. Not everybody's made at the start of the season. The Pilots have a lot of no hat guys and black hat guys because of that. Now, Lou Piniella was on a rookie card. He was a good player and a good manager. Mike Hegan was the first All-Star selection, but he was injured and didn't play the game. Don Mincher took his place. Now, Mike Hegan hit the franchise's first home run, and Tommy Harper had the very first hit for the franchise. Now, you may remember Mike Hegan used to call the Brewer games on TV. The Pilots' first pitcher that won a game was Marty Patton. Although they only won 64 and they lost 98 that year. They did play one game in Milwaukee that year, and they lost to the home White Sox. I'll tell you about that later. I have a couple of Wielden poster Pilots. I'm not sure what Wielden posters actually are. They did make OPC cards that year. Again, that's the Canadian version of Topps. They look the same. Sometimes they're numbered differently, and they definitely look different enough, especially from the back. They made Major League Baseball stamps. They made Milton Bradley game cards. They made, the newspapers, the Seattle Post-Intelligencer, made a team set. Topps made a team poster. They made decals. They made decal edge cards. They made 4-in-1 cards. They made stamps, and they made supers, which are a little bigger. I wish I had better examples of those. I really don't have any. I do have a Pilot's ashtray. A former usher from the Brewers' first year gave it to me. He told me that they tried to sell Seattle Pilot stuff they had hanging around from the year before at County Stadium souvenir stands, and nobody bought anything, and they let the ushers take whatever they wanted, so he had a stack of them. There are 2 for sale right now on eBay for the neighborhood of $400. My personal estimate of its real value is maybe 15 or 20 bucks. Here's 2 first-year Brewer pennants. The Brewers were the name of the minor league team that was here from 1902 to 1952. And these are artistically similar to that stuff that they had then. The barrels and the barrel men. Also, just so you know, Bernie Brewer was a real guy, and he camped out in the bleachers at County Stadium in the spring of 1970, waiting for a team to come. And they did. The 1970 Brewers team were mostly the same guys the Pilots had, and they didn't do much better. Even the team colors and uniforms were basically the same, since the move was a bit of a surprise, and they had no time to change it. They were loved and supported in Milwaukee because they missed baseball that bad. But let's back up a second. The White Sox weren't drawing fans in the late 60s. In Chicago, they were more Cubs oriented, I believe, at the time. So the White Sox actually played 9 home games in Milwaukee, well, plus an exhibition game. But 9 games that counted. This is 1968. So they played every team in the American League 1 game here. In 1969, there were 2 more teams, so they played 11 games that counted and 1 exhibition. So in 1969, the Pilots and the Royals in the American League were the expansion teams, and the Expos and the Padres in the National League were the expansion teams. Now the Padres and the Pilots/Brewers have never won a World Series. The Rangers, who started as the Senators in 1961, the Mariners, the Rockies, and the Devil Rays are all the franchises that have not won a World Series. There's only 6. Anyway, less than a week before opening day, the Pilots were sold to Bud Selig, Edmund Fitzgerald and Company for $10.8 million. No time at all for the Topps baseball card company or any baseball card company to really keep up with that change. So everything says Pilots on them. And they all have those uniforms except for 5 no-hat guys and 1 black hat guy. 30 cards in all. Phil Roof is on this team, and one of only 3 guys to play for the Milwaukee Braves and the Milwaukee Brewers. Felipe Alou played 3 games in 1974 for the Brewers. You know the other guy, right? That would be Hank Aaron. Well, in 1970, they went 65 and 97, so a 1-game improvement. Tommy Harper was the first Brewer All-Star. Dave Bristol was hired to manage right before the season, and former Milwaukee Brave Roy McMillan was the first base coach. In 1970, Sixto Loscano was signed in October as a free agent, so that was a good move. Well, as far as collectibles go, besides Topps, Kellogg's had made 2 Brewers, Tommy Harper and Don Mincher. These were put in cereal boxes, and they have sort of a lame 3D effect. Kellogg's made cards off and on in the 60s for baseball and football. They're a little more consistent going forward now. These pages were made by McDonald's. I'm not sure how they were sold or distributed, but I think they're very nice, and I think a lot of the programs and scorecards too in 1970 sold at the stadium. There must be a yearbook too. I don't have one. In 1970, other collectibles made were Sunoco pins, Brewers milk cards. I'm not sure what those are. Team issued photos. Dayton Daily News had cards that basically were newsprint. You could cut them out yourself. OPC again has the Canadian version, and the backs are different. They made Super Balls with players inside. Milton Bradley game cards were made. Topps made booklets. They made stamps. They made posters. They made candy lids. They made scratch-off games and supers. Well, 1971 had 28 cards made by Topps. Very bad cardboard and black borders mean they show wear very easily. One of the absolute hardest sets to get together and find them all in great shape with no edge wear. Well, all the cards at least finally say Brewers, and they have only 3. They have only 3 no hat guys. In 1971, they finished 69 and 92, so still not good. They were last, and the team batting average was .229. Now, after the season, Tommy Harper, Marty Patton, and Lou Krause were traded for George Scott, Ken Brett, Billy Conigliaro, I don't know how to say that, Joe LaHoud, Jim Lonborg, and Don Pavletich. Marty Patton was our all-star that year. Now, Bob Uecker joined the radio broadcast booth for the 71 season, and he's still there. He was calling games with Merle Harmon and Tom Collins. Like all good radio guys from Wisconsin, Tom Collins did polka announcing. Like all good radio guys in Wisconsin, Tom Collins started as a polka announcer, and did radio for the Braves in the early 60s also. Merle Harmon did 2 years of the Braves broadcast too, but Merle Harmon had done a lot of sports over the years for a lot of different networks and everything. Merle Harmon started Fanfare, selling jerseys, hats, etc. One of my favorite places to go drool as a kid. I didn't know at one time that he had 140 stores. Now you can see the difference in the tops and the OPC cards here. The OPC is brighter on back. In 1971, other stuff they had were bazooka cards. We have a Tommy Harper. They actually had the right hats on all the guys, except for Tommy Harper, because whatever picture they used was still a Seattle picture, I think. They were cut out of the boxes by kids, and a lot of them were bad. The Kellogg's, you didn't have to cut them out yourself, at least. Kellogg's did make cards that year. Milk Duds had cards you cut out of the Milk Dud box yourself. They had team issued photos. Dell stamps. No, Dell is some sort of food product. Dell stamps had books that were pretty nice. They came in a little, book, and they had quite a lot of the players and nice pictures of them. 71 also had Topps coins, very similar to what they'd made in 64. Topps had greatest moment cards, which there is a Tommy Harper in that. They made scratch offs, they made supers, and they had tattoos. Well, there you have it. Collectibles from the 69 Pilots, 70 and 71 Brewers. We're going to do the next 3 years next time. More fun stuff.